Troubleshooting.
Everybody say real in 3, 2, 1.
Real.
Okay, so this is How to Be a Dungeon Master by me. Alright. Now, first things first. How about I ask a question? What is a Dungeon Master? Anybody want to answer? Mike?
They are the controller of the game.
Okay. That's true. That's real.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the real thing that a Dungeon Master needs to be, every Dungeon Master needs to be, is a master of the rules. So, every player typically knows less than what the Dungeon Master knows. The Dungeon Master knows everything about the world. The only thing that the players really know more than the Dungeon Master is what the characters' motivations and their thoughts about things that happen in the world. Now, this is D&D in layman's terms. Basically, the referee... Do you know what layman's terms means?
No.
It means
No.
it's for dumb people. Like for dummies.
I knew some kid named Lehman.
That... Really?
He was pretty stupid.
They named
Really?
it after
If
him.
you're out there, I hate you.
Really? Okay.
Real.
Real. So, the referee, which is the Dungeon Master, and the players work together to tell a story. So, D&D really is a collaborative storytelling game. The players handle their characters, the Dungeon Master handles the world and all the NPCs and the plot. And really, if you're talking about dice, like why the hell do you roll dice? Why aren't we just sitting in a circle and telling stories? The reason you roll dice is when you do something challenging. So, we're going to get into... Holy shit.
Silence.
But yeah, whenever an action is considered challenging, the DM will say, yo, you got to roll a d20, and then the DM also says, hey, this is the modifiers that you add to it. This is the really important. World building is not planning the campaign. The world is the game is the world that the characters are playing in, and the campaign is the action in the story, as in like Rising Action, Story Mountain. You guys learned about that in like 3rd grade. They're two different things, so you got to prepare for them separately. You make the world, you make all the characters and important places, like cities and stuff like that, but the campaign is separate. So the Dungeon Master creates the world that the players inhabit, and there are many different famous worlds. So they're mostly for pre-made adventures. So the Forgotten Realms, like the campaign that you ran, Ben, that was in the Forgotten Realms. That's what Cholt's in. That's in that. But Eberron, that's a world where it's like steampunk. Dark Sun is like the whole world is covered in a desert, and Middle Earth, that's the Lord of the Rings. But yeah, the best way to build a world is from a small place up. So like it could be from where the players start, or just like an important city, and then you build it bigger. But yeah, the most important rule of D&D is the Dungeon Master has all the roots right. They are more than God. They are better than the gods. These are the 5 steps. These are my 5 steps for planning a campaign. They're pretty easy. The world.
Going too fast.
Sorry. I'm sorry. The world, which is what we just went over. The adventure hook. So this is like, this is what calls the players to action. So this hook can be prepared by a Dungeon Master, but the most satisfying hooks are used from players' backstories. So like the thing that hooks the players in is they're like, hey, I know that name, or I know that town because I wrote that in my backstory. Yeah, but the most important part of the game is the players. The most important thing is that the players are enjoying the game. Yeah, that should be number 1 on every DM's agenda. And then of course we've got the adventure, which this is making of the campaign. There could be multiple adventures in one campaign, and yeah, it's separate from the world. And if you can't really see it right here, but I made a little thing. I didn't make this. This is actually in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's called the Tiers of Play. So from levels 1 to 4, players are considered local heroes. So they slayed a bear that's attacking their town. That's why they're local heroes, and that's something they do from level 1 to 4. From 5 to 10, they're the heroes of their realm. So they're as famous as how big their realm is. So a realm in the Forgotten Realms, which it's just that's a coincidence, but is like the Sword Coast. So everybody on the Sword Coast knows your name, and then you can be 11 to 6. That's masters of the realm. So that means you obviously have some influence. That's how powerful you are. And then 17 to 20 is masters of the world. So you have so much influence that you influence the entire world.
That's a funny little GIF.
Which one? This one?
Yeah, that GIF.
It's about how players want to kill all the NPCs. You know what a murder hobo is?
deserve it.
Real.
You know what a murder hobo is? That's what most of you guys played in my previous campaigns.
Yeah.
Just kill every NPC.
I remember that.
Yeah, for real.
I remember we saved somebody and then we killed them.
Good job. I like that.
Like I drew
You should
Pikachu.
look at it.
Bro. What?
Do you like my notes?
I like your little guy. Oh, I like the cat. What a dungeon master needs to be. So, Mike, without looking at the screen, what are the 3 parts of a Dungeons and Dragons game?
Combat.
Okay. Real.
Talking.
Social interaction, yes.
Lore.
Lore, kind of. It's exploring the world.
The world.
Or
Close
just
enough.
Exploration. So yeah, social interaction. This is role play. Not that kind of role play.
Aw.
Actually, I do have a funny gif when I do talk about role play a little bit. This is role play. Dungeon Master is the NPC. The players are themselves, and the players deal with the personalities of their character. Exploration is exploring the world, and this is the Dungeon Master's chance to just dump all the lore that the players don't care about on the players. And then combat, obviously. What's D&D without some fighting? Am I right?
Real.
I like
Real.
some action.
You see, I wrote it. It's like, you see, I'm going
I
on
see
an
it.
event. You see that?
Lord of the Rings.
That's The Hobbit, actually, but yeah. It's same world.
It's mirroring my way to your mom's house.
Right. Okay, so, ability scores. So, the only time, everything you do outside of combat, it's just like, hey, I want to go touch the grass. And then you're like, sick.
Impossible.
It's like
That's rare in that game.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't have used that.
Maybe.
But, okay, but the Dungeon Master will prompt the player to do an ability check if what is going on is challenging. So, if let's give an example. A player is jumping over a chasm, okay? That's
What's a
not
chasm?
A chasm is like if you're in a cave and it just like goes down.
You could have said an obstacle.
I'll give you.
Okay, fine.
I'll
A
give
hole.
you- I'll give you.
A deep hole.
A what?
A deep hole.
What would that be considered?
A chasm.
What would that be? It's obstructing.
Something. Okay, whatever.
There.
Okay, so let's say a character is
An
running
obstacle.
and jumping over a
An
thing.
obstacle.
The Dungeon Master would say, hey, you need to roll an athletics check or an acrobatics check. So, actually, why don't I show you?
Do a flip.
So, when you're DMing, you're probably going to have a DM screen like this.
It's cute.
I bet you've never seen it on the inside of this, have you?
Yeah, I have. It's a lot of words.
So these are all the skills in the game
Yeah.
and the ability. So you're going to say, hey, someone's like, I want to read this magic book. And you're like, okay, roll an arcana check. The person does their skill check. And they add their, which is just rolling a d20, and then they add their arcana modifier to it. You know how that works. That's,
Yeah,
that's
but-
pretty simple.
So that number, deciding whether they passed or not, how do you come up with that?
Yes,
Do
okay.
you
so-
make it up, or is it already predetermined?
So that is called a difficulty challenge. So in pre-written campaigns, a difficulty challenge is set out. So like if someone's like, I want to open this door, you're like, okay, it's a difficulty challenge 10. But in typical games, or if you're not doing that, then you have to make it up yourself. So basically 10,
Real or not?
5 is really easy, 10 is medium, 15 is hard, and 20 is super hard. Okay?
Ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah, do you guys know what advantage and disadvantage is?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So basically, if you have advantage, you roll 2 d20s and you take the higher one. If you have disadvantage, you roll 2 d20s and you roll the lower one. You still add your modifier to it if it's advantage or disadvantage, but it like depends. It depends. So let's say if someone has, let's say they're jumping over that chasm. If they have ankle weights, then what are they gonna have when jumping over the chasm? They're gonna have disadvantage. So that's just like something you say, like if you punch somebody and then you want to do a charisma check on them, like a let's say a persuasion check, I'm gonna say, okay, you can roll that, but you have to roll with disadvantage since you just punched them.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You got the ankle weights, but what if you also have something that helps you? Do they cancel out?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question.
build muscle.
So if you have, yeah, like
Real.
so if something helps you, and something gives you advantage, and something gives you disadvantage, then you have nothing, and you do a straight roll.
Okay.
But, and also, this is another thing. If one thing gives you advantage and a billion things give you disadvantage, it's still just a straight roll. And if a million things give you advantage and one thing gives you disadvantage, still a straight roll. Okay, so this is exploration. This is people say that this is the most unimportant part of the game, but I like exploration because you get to share the world that you created. Especially if you created the world yourselves, this is the time to show off how fantastical your world is. So in between the important actions of your story, you have, it's basically filler. But I hate filler. Yeah, it's basically filler. But
I barely know her.
Bro.
Oh my god.
It was basically filler, but you want to put things in there so it's not like, oh yeah, we basically teleport to this location. You guys take 3 days and you teleport there. You want to have things to engage people, so that's things like side quests, dialogue, and NPCs, and sometimes it can be the most fun part of the adventure. You look, do you see
Like my notes,
my
Mike.
little thing? Do you see how it says like,
Role playing.
role playing? Like look, it's like
This is my favorite part.
this is the guy from 50 Shades of Grey, and he's like, oh, I love role play, for real. Okay,
As you
role
are.
play in Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so a lot of people consider this the most fun part of Dungeons and Dragons. So D&D is not a board game. What is it, Ben?
Role play.
It's a role playing game. It's actually a tabletop role playing game. That's the official name.
I'm on top mode.
Bro. It's a tabletop role playing game. That's what Dungeons and Dragons, that's its official name. So the people, you guys, well, us, are creating personalities for our characters, how they talk, how you want to role play them, and also their character motivations. And the dungeon master plays every other character that the players aren't playing. And they have to make NPCs know why they're acting like that, how they're acting like that. You can do funny voices if you want. Or you can not be very creative. You can be like, every blacksmith is a grumpy dwarf, and every barmaid is a busty halfling woman.
Say less.
That is actually, those are like the most stereotypical NPCs. But yeah. And also preparing NPCs even a little bit. Like when I DM, a lot of my NPCs are I just rip them. But what I keep is a list of names, boys' names and girls' names. And that's just like if they're on the street and I'm like, okay, I just need to find someone to get to the nearest tavern. It's like, hi, what's your name? The DM doesn't have to be like, oh shit. They can just be like, yeah, I'm Brandy Elfler or something like that. That was a made-up name. Like, don't do what I just think is a shitty name.
I got a few names down
They're
already.
basically
some
NPCs as
names
it
down?
is.
Yeah, I got. You want to hear them?
Yeah.
Fred,
That's a terrible name.
Frederick.
Really?
Yeah. Wait, Rick.
Oh, dude, yo, he combined
Wait,
them.
Richard. Wait,
Oh, I know what's next.
Dick.
Yeah, okay, I got that. Okay, what is the golden rule of Dungeons and Dragons?
Is that the golden ratio?
That's why I put that. Yeah.
Have fun.
Kind of.
Work
yeah.
hard.
Oh. It's about drive.
It's kind of about power. So basically, the golden rule of Dungeons and Dragons is that you are supposed to enjoy, and if the players want to do something epic, this is called the rule of cool. If the players want to do something epic, even though it doesn't completely align with the rules, you should let them do it typically. If they want to do a backflip, stab the person in the head, and they've already killed the person and they already hit, let them do it because they're going to have fun saying that they do all this stuff. And you shouldn't have to say, hey, if you want to do a backflip before you kill them, you have to do an acrobatic check. You should just let them do it because it's all for the spice. It's all for the spice of life. This is the first things that a DM should be worrying about. Make sure that players flesh out their characters, flesh out their backstories. They should know in their minds what their characters look like, the goals of their characters. This is actually a good thing for you guys. You should know the goals for your character, what they want to accomplish in the campaign, and also their motivations, what motivates them, and also their personality. Okay, so yeah, character motivations is really good for a DM to know, because if they look at the goals of their players, like you might want to just even ask your players, hey, what are the goals of your character? Because basically a campaign will write itself. Like if let's say one of the characters' backstories is they want to kill their evil brother. Boom! You've got a big bad. You've got the villain of the story already,
Sounds familiar.
and you've got what?
Sounds good.
Sasuke. Oh yeah, facts. Wow, I didn't even think of that. They want to kill their evil brother. You got the big bad evil guy, or the villain. We'll talk about BBGs in a little bit.
BBLs?
Huh? No, not BBLs.
I didn't say that.
But yeah, this is why I emphasize this. Make sure to incorporate characters' backstories into the plot, because sometimes players' backstories will write the campaign for you, and you don't even need to do any extra work. Okay, session 0. We've already had a session 0, but session 0 is where the DMs set the expectations for a campaign. This is where they say, hey, this is going to be a serious campaign, this is going to be a lighthearted campaign. Because you don't want, I wrote this little thing, I said, you don't want Sir Fart Schnitzel in your serious campaign that talks about slavery and genocide.
Awesome.
Real?
True.
Real? I mean, you could, but you want to specify with the players. And then, yeah, so, wait, what was the last thing? Oh, okay. And the session 0, this is where players should make their characters, and this is also how players, this is how you want to make sure that players know each other. At least they don't have to know each other at the very beginning of the campaign, but how they're going to get to know each other. Also, this is a good time to be like, hey, this is, you can form relationships. Like, Ben and I were making our characters, and we figured out that our players are going to be, our characters are going to be brothers. So those are just easy relationships to have with us, and it makes it easier for the DM, because if they're all already they're already relationship. I didn't mean that. If they're already relationships established, then the DM only has to be like, okay, 3 parties meet rather than 4, because 2 are already together. Okay, so working with players. So this is a really good thing for a DM to do, and it actually makes it super easy for a DM. In between campaigns, let's say we're done session 4, and the players are kind of wrapping up the first major arc of the story where they're fighting a gang in a city. Now, the DM might want to ask, hey, what do you guys want to do next? Where are you guys thinking of going? That allows for the DM to prepare what they're going to do next. So if the players say, hey, yeah, we're going from this city to this small town, the DM's like, okay, great. Now, in between sessions, I'm going to prepare encounters for that road, and I'm going to start setting up that city because I want to be prepared. This is a good thing just to know where characters want to be. All right. Bye, YouTube. Why don't you go down, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Mike, what else should they do?
Can you see my butt?
They can see your back. Okay.